Hello and welcome to Roshango's Reviews, the show where I tell you about my thoughts of the latest movies that come out in theaters near you and if you should see them or not. I'm your host, Aaron Bolio, and welcome to our 5th episode, and I must say it is great to be back downstairs. The renovations have finished up, and we can resume as normal with my favorite TV monitor next to me. So, a couple weeks ago, I told you I saw my favorite 2 shows while doing this show. I saw Ex Machina and Mad Max in the same week. And then last week I saw San Andreas and Aloha, my least favorite 2 movies upon doing this. So what did this week bring us? Completely by accident, this week also brought me the 2 movies that I guess I found to be most indifferent to. Movies I wasn't insane about, but I didn't dislike them either. It's kind of funny how things work out like that. So I guess I'll just get started with the first one. That would be Spy, the latest Melissa McCarthy comedy. Melissa McCarthy has become very popular since she just started doing the show Mike and Molly on CBS just a few years ago. A show I enjoy, and I enjoy the 2 actors the more than I think I enjoy the show, and I think that can be spoken about pretty much everything Melissa McCarthy does. This movie is a spy spoof movie. I guess it was more trying to satirize James Bond than anything else, but there's elements of all sorts of action movies and other spy dramas. The main storyline is Melissa McCarthy plays basically an office worker, I guess you could say, for the CIA, while an actual very James Bond agent goes out and does James Bond sort of spying. He's a field agent, and she monitors the drones, and she does the research on the fly and all sorts of things like that. Well, when Melissa McCarthy's partner goes missing, there is a whole new investigation going on to try to find out who is trying to buy this nuclear bomb that went missing during their last mission. This nuclear bomb could be sold to a terrorist organization at any point, and the only person who knows is the daughter of this crime lord. Now, the key is the daughter knows who all the biggest CIA agents are, so they need to send an agent after her who she wouldn't know. That's when Melissa McCarthy volunteers to go into the field. She's never been in the field before, which is a disadvantage because of her lack of experience, but an advantage since no one would suspect her if she decided to go and do this. Now, then, from this point on, McCarthy tries to tail the crime lord's daughter in various disguises that were probably one of the more higher points of the comedy in the movie, when she thought she was going to be playing some kind of crazy badass woman. She instead was playing a divorcee from Iowa who owns 10 cats, and that was part of the humor in the movie. But as she goes along, she starts to go rogue, and next thing you know, she finds herself convincing the crime lord's daughter that she is her special bodyguard, and manages to actually do a very good job in the spy work. All the meanwhile, Jason Statham plays one of the highest ranking agents in the CIA who desperately wanted this mission and quits and goes rogue. And McCarthy finds Statham many, many times throughout the movie, but he seems to only make her job harder, not easier. And it ends pretty much the way you'd expect it to end. I don't think any spoilers. It's a comedy. There's going to be a happy ending. So what did I think of the movie? Well, I will say this. Compared to Get Hard, which was one of the first movies I reviewed on this show, it was a far, far better comedy than that, but that's not saying extraordinarily much. I think I gave that one a 5 or a 4. I couldn't quite remember, but Spy, I think, tried a lot harder with its jokes. It definitely threw more jokes at me than Get Hard did, and a lot of them fell flat, unfortunately, and I think for the latter half the movie was very boring, which was a shame because I saw on Rotten Tomatoes that the critics were giving this one humongous reviews, and all of a sudden my interest sparked it, and that's why I wanted to see this one right away. Unfortunately, I didn't really see what the critics saw in it. I liked a lot of it. I liked a lot of the jokes it threw, and I definitely was good for a few laughs, but that's just kind of it. It was good for a few laughs. The rest of it, I don't know, it felt like it was trying to be more of a serious spy movie with a comedic actress like Melissa McCarthy in it, and throwing the occasional weird joke at you once in a while. A lot of them worked, a lot of them missed, but it almost felt like they forgot what genre the movie was halfway through. Now, McCarthy herself, she was fairly funny in this. She is a very funny and energetic person, and even in a movie like this, where a lot of the jokes weren't working, it was probably more the writing, because she definitely brought a lot of energy into the movie. And that's one thing I like most about her is, even in the worst things she's been in, you at least enjoy her. There's something to like about her, and she played a very good character in this, as a lot of people underestimated her. Now, I'm not going to make any weight assumptions, but she is a lot heavier than one would expect a secret agent who's supposed to be some kind of super soldier to have. But it's kind of hilarious how skilled she actually is because of just pure rage. And the way she improvises and the way she actually goes about the business makes her actually a fairly convincing secret agent as the movie progresses. And you do find yourself rooting for her for the majority of the movie. Now, unfortunately, she doesn't get as many laughs as I hoped I'd get, but she definitely was good for a few. Now, Jason Statham, on the other hand, and this is so weird because I've only seen him play the dead serious, emotionless action hero, was probably the best part of the movie for some reason. I don't know how he did it, but Statham managed to basically take his stick, and I think he's very aware of what he plays and how he's always been typecasted. He was hilarious in this for the few scenes he was in. Now, he's listed second on it, but really he wasn't in the movie as much as you could, or as much as you think he would be, considering that you see him all over the trailers and his is the second name in the title. But McCarthy definitely plays most of it. But basically, what Jason Statham does throughout the movie is, after he goes rogue, he plays the perfect dumb guy who takes it seriously. He starts trying to follow the mission, and all he ends up doing is making things worse, but he keeps thinking he's helping. And every time he encounters McCarthy, he always tells her that, you know, you're only making the mission worse, you're not helping, which is ironic, and I think that was the funny with him. But it's just the way he takes the role so seriously. He plays it like any Jason Statham role, but yet he says some of the funniest lines, and I can definitely see them taking 9 or 10 takes because of him absolutely dying laughing while trying to read some of the lines they gave him as seriously as he did. I think part of what made it funny was, you might have seen in the trailers, he starts raving about how great of a secret agent he is, how much of a manly man he is, and how he has this great history of being this super slick, cool, badass who does all these crazy stunts. But the stunts that they tell him to say are so completely over the top that you can tell that this super slick secret agent is probably making up every one of his great feats. And that was what made Statham so funny.
I once used defibrillators on myself. I put shards of glass in my f***ing eye. I've jumped from a high-rise building using only a raincoat as a parachute and broke both legs upon landing. And I still had to pretend I was in a f***ing Cirque du Soleil show. I've swallowed enough microchips and back out again to make a computer. This arm has been ripped off completely and reattached with this f***ing arm.
I don't know that that's possible.
And this is the thing that kind of disappointed me most about the movie, was Statham reminded me a lot of older Mel Brooks movies, like Spaceballs, like Blazing Saddles, like all these other movies. Even the opening scene, which I might spoil a joke, but it basically the main secret agent finds the bad guy, knows he can't, kills him, and he sneezes and shoots him.
I'm the only one who knows where that nuke is. Well, then in that case, I'd say you'd better stop. didn't do it on purpose. There's like a ton of pollen in here.
I was in tears laughing at that, and I had great hopes for the rest of the movie, but it let me down. And that's the thing that kills me, is this is a movie, the more I thought about it, and the more this movie made me miss Mel Brooks, because I thought this was going to be a Mel Brooks-style parody, the more I realized the ways you could have fixed this. If this movie came out 30 years ago and it was written by Mel, it would have been absolutely hilarious. And I don't just mean like, you know, the Austin Powers. I mean, they took it the way they took these dead serious James Bond movies and gave them a Mel Brooks style. I'll give you some examples of what I mean by that. Now, a big problem with this is what I listed earlier. They sort of forgot that this was a comedy at some points. They started basically driving off the path, and basically it turned more into an action movie with jokes in it and a goofy person than it was an actual goofy comedy. The difference between that and what Mel Brooks does, it's basically goofy people in a goofy atmosphere. I mean, when you look at Spaceballs, everyone knows it's a comedy. Everybody knows that the whole thing is a joke. You've got these complete goofballs like Darth Helmet, who, you know, he has the ridiculous helmet, and he's a loser once he takes it off.
I can't breathe in this thing!
You know, it's things like this. But in this movie, Melissa McCarthy is basically the only goofball person. They take a goofball person, put him in a serious situation. What they should do is have goofballs be goofballs in this ridiculous setting. And that's what they do. Like, for example, another Mel Brooks movie, Blazing Saddles, they break the fourth wall so many times, especially at the end when they literally leave the movie and they're in Hollywood. It's just things like that that I kind of wanted from this movie. Just one of those old, classic, just throw everything to the wall, hold nothing back, and whatever works will work. And that's what made old movies like that great. In this movie, the villains, for example, the villain is just this snobby rich woman. She takes it very seriously. She's trying to sell a nuclear weapon, yada, yada, yada. It would have been so much better if they took her and instead wrote in sort of like a Dr. Evil-like character. That's what Austin Powers did great, was they made the villains just so ridiculously over the top in their evilness that it made it really hilarious. They took almost the stereotypes and put them into the actual roles, and that's what made Mel Brooks so funny. That's what made all these classic parodies so funny, is what they understood the source material and knew how to twist it in funny ways. This movie just sort of copies and pastes the source material with some jokes over it. Now with these older Mel Brooks movies, the whole movie was a joke. And that was the point, and that's what I miss. That's what I wanted this movie to be, and it wasn't. It took itself too seriously at some point, and it didn't work in the sense of a foil. So I'm going to give Spy a 6 out of 10. I feel like that might be a little high. I didn't enjoy it too much, but I enjoyed it far, far more than some of the older movies I saw on this, such as Get Hard or Home or some of the other comedies. It definitely was trying to be a comedy and had some pretty funny points, but in the end, it just kind of started taking itself too seriously, and a lot of the jokes just didn't work, so it kind of became a mundane movie. Now on to the next movie I saw. This one was Entourage. The Entourage is the new motion picture based on the HBO show that aired from, I believe, 2004 to 2011. Entourage was a show I never saw. I only had HBO for about 2 years of my life, and those 2 years, Entourage had already ended at that point. But I do know of the show. I knew it was about Vince, who was this ordinary kid from, I believe, New York, who went out to Hollywood and became the biggest movie star in the world, and this was about all the weird antics that he and his brother and his two friends continued to go on, and It also focused a lot on his over-the-top agent, and it was filled with celebrity cameos, particularly Mark Wahlberg, who was one of the producers for this movie. So I didn't know what to really expect going into this movie. But I will give it a lot of credit in this regard, and this is something a lot of adaptations are terrible at, is that they assume that you already seen the source material. I didn't see it, and I understood everything easily. It was incredibly easy to follow. There could have never been a show, and you would have understood 99%. I think they put in a few jokes and a few like little winks at the fans of the show, so that the fans would really, enjoy that. I think other audience members wouldn't. I could tell that there were definitely some references to the show that I immediately didn't get, but they didn't ruin anything. I could follow the movie fine. So what was the movie about in this one? Well, Vince and his friends are living the high life as usual, and his old agent Ari decides to come out of retirement because he has a new movie for Vince. Vince is the biggest actor in the world, so getting Vince on board automatically will give this movie traction. The movie they're making, they were kind of vague about. It seemed to be this sort of futuristic epic about Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but they never really went into too much detail about what the movie within the movie was about. The more focus was what was going on in the behind the scenes of the movie than the actual product. Now, Vince has found his life to be kind of unfulfilling, or not as much unfulfilling, but he knew he had to do something new, something exciting, so he told Ari, I want to direct this movie, which threw everyone by surprise, but they let Vince go for it. Vince and his brother Johnny Drama starred in the movie, and Drama, who is having a bit of a down curve in his career as an actor, believes that this movie is going to bring him back up to the top. His friend Murphy is helping to produce it, and their friend Turtle is along for the ride as well. Now, Vince starts running into some money issues. He's making the movie bigger and bigger. He goes over budget. He asks Ari for more money, and he says, the movie's going great so far, but I need to finish it, and I need just a few more $1 million. Just a few more $1 million, and we can finish the movie. Ari is not a fan of this and knows he has to contact the funders of the studio in Texas. Now, the studio funders are these billionaires. I believe that they said they were farm industry people. They might have been oil. They were very, very vague on that. But you know that they're loaded, and you know that the entire future of this movie is going to depend on these people funding it. So the father, the head chair of this whole organization, sends his son, who's played by Haley Joel Osment, back to California to see how the progress is going with the movie, and it's up to Haley Joel Osment to decide whether or not they're going to fund it. The problem is, even though he's obviously in his 20s or whatever, he's an adult, he's a very immature, spoiled, rich kid, and that creates a lot of problems down the road, especially because he wants everything his way, and that begins interfering with the artistic integrity of the movie. And Haley Joel Osment is also not a fan of Drama being in the movie, which is key because Drama needs this movie to succeed. So now it's up to Vince, Ari, the gang, to try to convince this person to let them fund the movie. So what did I like about this movie, for starters? I didn't very much enjoy it, even though it was panned universally. I found the whole group to be really, really fun guys. Vince was an incredibly nice guy, and the other three, although they were kind of bro-douchey, I still had a lot of fun about it. But they did something a lot of movies are really, really bad about, and that is writing, excuse the language, ass characters. That's the only way I can describe it, because when you watch it, you know these guys are dirtbags, and they aren't the best of people, but they know what to do with this. They don't just say, because a lot of people do this when they're writers, they assume because this is a protagonist or because this is a main character, you're going to be forced to like them. You have to like them because they're the main character. Now, if the main character is a complete jerk, you're not going to like him. But they do two things. One, intentions. Ari is one of the biggest mean people in this movie. He constantly screams and he yells and he demands everything to be perfect. He is a perfectionist, and he is the stereotypical Hollywood agent slash producer. He is just that insane about it. But no matter how mean he is, you know what his intentions are. You know that he's just trying to make sure that the movie is done right. He wants it to be done right for Vince and Drama and the guys. And you know at the end of the day, he still likes all these guys. He's just very agitated, and he has budgets to keep, schedules to keep, people to impress. He has a very stressful job, and you understand where he's coming from. He's even trying to make his marriage work despite of it. And Ari was actually one of my favorite characters in the movie because of how funny he got when he started having these temper tantrums. But the other thing that they do right when it comes to these jerk characters is karma. That's one of the things we need. We see Drama, for example, start being a real sleazebag towards this girl. He tries getting the girl to send him naked pictures, and he finds out the girlfriend has a husband, and the husband gets revenge on him by the end of the movie, and Drama learns his lesson. That's the key with a jerk character, is that they have to learn their lesson about being a jerk by the end, and all these characters do that. The other thing I liked about this movie was the nature of it. It had a very almost relaxed tone. The conflict was there, and it was pressing, and you were aware of it, but it was just kind of a fun movie to watch. You just kind of got to sit back and enjoy watching these Hollywood rich kids have their parties. It felt fun. Now, I don't like too much partying in movies, mainly because there's only so much of a party you can watch before you get bored. You're not at the party, you're watching it. But they live in these nice houses. They have these beautiful women over and these really big-name celebrity friends. They just seem to have a lot of good times in LA, which is a beautiful city. You felt like you were enjoying your summer like they were enjoying theirs. But there were some problems I did have. Number one was I couldn't quite tell if it was supposed to be a comedy or not. It felt like it was supposed to be just this nonfiction work that had a lot of jokes in it. If they were trying to make it a comedy, it wasn't a great comedy, despite the fact that I did think it was a decent movie. I think the other issue that I had was that it's very bro-y, for lack of better words. It's very, very dude-oriented. It's hard to really describe, but they make a lot of sexual jokes, a lot of swearing, a lot of partying, like I mentioned before. And although I don't mind it, and the very, very crude humor is something I can enjoy to a degree, I know there's a lot of very stuck-up people, or even just regular people looking for a family-friendly movie that get sick of that. It gets grating. There's only so much nudity and partying that you can take in a movie before you start getting really pissed off at it. Now, for me, they were very, very bro-y at the beginning, but just when I was reaching my limit, they slowed it down, and it felt perfect for me. But not everyone's the same, and I really think that there's a lot of people out there that are not going to enjoy this movie because of it. And I think that's part of the reason why it got such a bad review from critics, but such great reviews from audiences, was I think that broiness, that crudeness, became grating on a lot of critics. But what jokes did work were pretty funny in the movie. And one of my favorite things, and I know a lot of things get criticized for this, but the celebrity cameos were massive, and I love celebrity cameos when they work. They had, I can't even begin to name all of them. They've had, other actors like Liam Neeson was in it, Mark Wahlberg was in it. They had social figures. They had Warren Buffett, and for NFL fans, there was quite a few NFL cameos. They had my boys Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. They had Russell Wilson and Clay Matthews. They had a lot of cameos, and every time you saw one of these cameos, you found it really funny because they did something pretty good with these celebrities. But once again, we have other problems. One of my biggest issues, while I found the main plot to be very enjoyable, there was decent drama in it. There were some high points and low points, but it was a very straightforward, very simple situation. The subplots were not as good. And there's a subplot where Turtle is trying to get together with this professional UFC woman, and that basically is good for a couple laughs in the movie, but it basically goes absolutely nowhere. There's a subplot where Murphy is trying to get together with all these women, and he's enjoying the party lifestyle. Meanwhile, his ex-wife is having their kid. He kind of misses her. He kind of wants to get back together, but he's being a LA douche, and he's hooking up with all these women. And then there's a point where one of the women claims that she's pregnant, another one claims that she had an STD, and although that sounds like it has a lot of drama behind it, that also goes nowhere. And it just felt like there was a lot of loose ends that weren't tied together at the end, despite the fact that I did very much enjoy the main conflict of the movie. I also give a lot of credit to Haley Joel Osment, who plays an excellent job as a rich Texan, and I'm got to give him a lot of credit because I've seen the direction a lot of child stars have gone, kids from his age group. You know, I've seen what happened to Macaulay Culkin. We don't even need to begin to get started with Lindsay Lohan. And I really forgot that Haley Joel Osment was even a person until recently, because he just hasn't had a lot of work. But I think this movie might help revitalize his movie career. I think he's just, I hate to say it, but not as attractive as many other movie stars. But I don't think that's fair, because I think he turned out to be a pretty good actor. And I really do hope that he gets a lot of work following this. Now, the main cast, though, is what I liked most about this movie. It felt like you were part of this group of just rapscallion, fun-loving guys. I mean, they might have been jerks at times. They might have said some really crude lines, and they might bust each other's balls a lot, but it was a group that I felt like I wanted to be a part of and could have a lot of fun with. Yeah, they party a lot. Yeah, they might do some pretty stupid, crude things, but they're enjoyable characters, and the relaxed nature of just being with these guys in beautiful, sunny Los Angeles made this movie work. I'm going to give Entourage a 7 out of 10, and by 7, I mean a solid 7. That's the best way I can describe the movie. It's solid. I know there's a humongous demographic of people that will absolutely hate it. There's an equally big demographic of people who will love it. I'm kind of in between. I'm sort of indifferent to it. I really liked it, and I really think the critics were way too hard on it, but it wasn't this big masterpiece by any means. It was just kind of an enjoyable movie. So if you're in that demographic that I described that would at least endure through some of the crude humor, if not enjoy it, then go and see it. But if you hate this nudity, the sexual jokes, the constant swearing, the parties, all that LA stuff, I guess you could say, I would stay away from it. Now that's all my thoughts for now. I'm Aaron Bolio, and I hope you guys have a good time at the movies this weekend. Good night.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.